Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Sandra from the Mortgage Center. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a great conversation with Liv Pellegrino. She's with a monoline lender or wholesale bank that we work with, First National Financial. So, hi, Liv.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Sandra. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Livia Pellegrino. I'm with First National Financial. We are Canada's largest non-bank lender, and we've been in business for over 30 years. And what makes us the biggest is because we've had great support from our brokers, such as Sandra, over the last few decades. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing the last few decades. I think we've been in business for a couple of decades.
I so dated myself. I'm sorry about that. And Sandra, I've known you for almost two decades myself. So
yeah, no, and I think that's really wonderful because when clients are working with our organizations, they've got that level of experience and expertise. And I wanted just to kind of get into things because the topic for today is around helping clients get organized for a mortgage, whether they're buying their first house or whether they're deciding to move. And I think most people nowadays know that they need to get pre-approved or pre-qualified. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit more, Liv, about how important it is to tell your broker, explain to your broker about their entire financial profile. Do you want to maybe just chat a little bit about that?
yeah, absolutely. So any good realtor that you work with or any good mortgage broker that you work with, such as Sandra, they are both going to tell you that it is so important to get pre-approved. You really need to understand what you qualify for and what the mortgage obligation is going to mean to you in terms of your monthly budgeting, and also other expenses. It's not just the mortgage payment, but there's other expenses with that as well. So when you meet with Sandra, your mortgage broker, consider her like your advocate. When you want someone to advocate for you, you got to tell them the full details. So when meeting with you, Sandra, it's so important for your clients to really be transparent as possible. And it's not that they want to hide anything, but it's just so important to be very specific about income, especially this year where a lot of Canadians have been interrupted with their income has been interrupted and employment's been interrupted due to COVID. So now more than ever, it's so important that, Sandra, when your clients are meeting with you, that they're not only just giving you a rough idea of what their income is, their hourly rate or their salary or their 2-year average if they're self-employed, but to actually bring those documents in to meet or send those documents to you ahead of time so that you, Sandra, can be their advocate and put your clients with the right lender.
Yeah, and I do think sometimes maybe people omit some of the finer details because they may be embarrassed or something has changed since the last time we talked about it. And I did deal with an individual and they were buying and they lost their job because of the pandemic. And we didn't find out until just a few days before the closing on the purchase. And it became very stressful for the borrowers and our clients because we had to change gears, but he had been unemployed for almost a month. And so I think, part of that was a little bit of embarrassment that they didn't contact us.
Mm-hmm.
But those details, like I feel the relationship with the broker, like you had mentioned, and the client, the borrower, it's a bit of a different relationship because we're acting as an advocate. So if we know that there's a change or an interruption in income, we can immediately change gears. And I always tell clients, like, we can get you a mortgage no matter what. I mean, obviously the cost and there may be some additional fees to that, but those details and being really open and upfront with your broker can help you in the long run instead of omitting details that you think may hurt you for your mortgage approval or pre-approval, right? Because that sort of stuff comes out in the wash anyway,
right?
Right?
And the analogy I like to use is it's no different than going to see your doctor. When you go see your doctor, you're very detailed about your symptoms. That way your doctor can give you the right diagnosis, prescription, whatever it is. But it's so important that your clients, Sandra, are upfront or, very detailed at the beginning. But also if there's any changes in their income. I'm sorry that gentleman lost his position. That's very unfortunate. But there are things that can be done, right? So if there's any changes such as job loss or, you got a new car loan, that's a fantastic thing. But those things do need to be told to you right away, Sandra, because that definitely can impact someone's qualifying, and someone's, like, you could have had an approval for them, and then all of a sudden that approval is no longer there. And then on closing date, that house isn't going to close. So it's so important that if there's any changes, good or bad, we want to know the bad too. That's important to disclose that with you, just so that we can get ahead of it. It can be mitigated, and there's no last minute surprises.
Yeah, I will always say to people, our clients, I hate surprises actually more than the customer does, because we always want things to be smooth and stress-free and kind of move them through our process. So, it can be a challenge, especially in these new challenging times. But the other thing I wanted just to add to that is, like, we're also take the approach, we're not judging people by their financial circumstance. And I think that that also opens the door to have those really great conversations with customers and say, okay, well, we understand this happened. Now let's get you into this, because let's get you here. And this is just kind of a stepping stone to get you to where you really want to end up. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is, like, we always promote getting documents up front. And I sometimes do get a bit of pushback from clients, like, hey, that mortgage professional or my bank never asked me for those documents up front. Like, how come you're asking for it? And I always tell our customers is, well, when you put an offer on a house, or we're going to set up your mortgage financing, you're not likely going to have an issue, because we understand the full picture of your financial picture and documents. Can you maybe just comment a little bit about documents?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get
It's
your
the more
ducks in a
boring. It's like the more boring part of the mortgage process.
it really is. Like, Sandra, when your clients are, filling out the application, or they're doing the application with you, again, as I said earlier, it's so important that documents are presented at the beginning. We want to get all the ducks in a row from the onset, because, again, like, we all kind of have an idea of what our income is, but until, like, it's on black and white, Sandra, you can't really make that decision as to which lender to go to until you really see that, because some lenders do have an issue with if the year date isn't on track to the hourly rate of pay that you're normally the client's normally getting. I don't want to get into too specifics about qualifying, but again, like, having the documents up front allows you, Sandra, to provide the clients with the best mortgage option, so that there's no surprises at the 11th hour. Everything's been reviewed up front. And again, it's just a smoother closing process. And why not give yourself that peace of mind, having those documents to you first, so that there's no surprise. It's all taken care of. It's all been reviewed. It's all been looked at, and you can sleep peacefully until you get the keys in your hand, that there's not going to be any issues. 100%. Especially with, like, self-employed borrowers, that's a big thing, where those are the most of the deals typically that do go sideways, is because, most people who are self-employed, they're so busy running their business and doing the everydays of running a business. And so it's so important that, as a self-employed borrower, you connect Sandra with your accountant, so that they can work together to look at the last 2 years T1 generals and NOAs to make a good decision as to where this mortgage is going to go, because it may not be the prime side. It could be an alternative lender. At First National, we have Excalibur that do work with self-employed borrowers that don't show a lot in terms on their income tax filing, but there are alternatives that can be done to get mortgage financing for someone that shows little on their income tax.
Yeah, the self-employed people, I find too, like, as you had mentioned, just to add to that, is, like, they're busy running their businesses. And that, I love that idea, Liv, of saying, hey, you know what, Jenny, just like put me in touch with your bookkeeper through like a email introduction and just say, hey, I'm getting some mortgage financing. Give Sandra whatever income documents we need to help me qualify for a mortgage, because I do, you know, sometimes people say, what's a T1 general? Like I've never had a T1 general. I'm like, oh no, your accountant had to prepare a T1 general to
That's
submit it
right.
to Revenue Canada. Yeah, so that is super important. I also wanted to maybe chat with you because again, I feel sometimes like clients don't really, they're like, really? I just provided you a letter of employment 2 months ago and you're asking for another letter of employment. Can you talk a little bit about like documents being stale dated and what the timeline is on that?
Yeah, right now, especially just during COVID, we are asking for documents to be no older than 14 days from when you sent in the application for a real deal. So Sandra, you could have met with the clients 2 months ago to get them pre-approved. They finally found their dream home. They put an offer. It's been accepted, which is fantastic. However, at that point, 2 months later, the income docs that were originally presented to you, unfortunately for a lender, those might be out of date. So it's always important that that you are willing, or you understand that down the road we may ask for more up-to-date income docs.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And then just to wrap things up, you know, we're all super busy, and I think I'm finding that there's also the financial institutions are taking a lot more time for due diligence and back and forth.
Mhm.
You know, what we try to do is really set expectations up front, but things sometimes do take a little bit longer than expected. Maybe talk, you know, can you comment on that and in setting expectations and why maybe it's important just to work with a seasoned mortgage professional, especially in these times where there's extra due diligence that's required?
Absolutely. So this year has been a remarkable year in terms of the real estate market. We've never expected to see this type of, um, amount of purchases happening, and it is unprecedented. And it is definitely, and we're very grateful for, especially at First National. We've done remarkably well this year. But again, because of the volume and with extra due diligence, because of interruption to COVID and income, things are taking a little longer. So if you do have to put a condition on finance, 3 to 5 days should be on there. Business days, I'll add. Even though we do have our at First National, they're working evenings and weekends just to keep up, which is fantastic. But I'm telling, like at this point, just my advice is 3 to 5 business days for a COF to be met, a condition of financing, just because it is busy and there is an interruption to COVID, and it is taking a little longer to underwrite and do extra due diligence.
Yeah, and I always, you know, we also do a lot of like restructuring people's mortgages, and so you can imagine that like when someone does put an offer on a house, that priority is always meeting that deadline. So,
And of course,
th-
Sandra,
I,
too, like your partnership with First National for so many years, you have your designated underwriter, and because you do have such a great relationship with First National, purchases definitely are taking the priority, especially if there's a condition of financing that has to be met. We will do everything we can to try to get that reviewed as soon as possible.
oh, that's great. I think that wraps up our conversation, Liv. Thanks so much for joining us tonight or this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sandra. It was such a pleasure to be on here with you. You've been such a supportive broker. You definitely understand the importance of service and giving your clients financial advice. So it's been such a pleasure to be part of this. And I just want to thank you and tell everyone out there, keep safe and keep well. Thank you.
Liv, great chatting with you all as usual. For those of you who'd love to learn more about what we do at the Mortgage Center, you can just Google us at the Mortgage Center Guelph. But you could also, if you go to my website at skipthebank.ca, you can book a 15-minute or 30-minute telephone consultation right from there. So you guys, everyone, thanks for joining us, and stay well, keep safe, and look forward to connecting.
Thank you.